Okay, welcome back to Nick Landis Comic Corner Classic / Non Classic. This is episode number 1771 and Doubleshot number 1665. I have two Spider-Man related trades. And here's the thing. The first one, he does visit Hyperion. The other one, he doesn't. Well, except for a flashback, mind you. First one is Carnage USA. Yep, collecting the 5-issue miniseries, Carnage U.S.A. by Zeb Wells and artwork by Clayton Crane. Yes, and both people who work on this book are at Comic-Con next month. Clayton Crane, this will be the second time I've ever met the guy. He's an awesome guy to meet in person, and he actually does agree with me how I describe his art style, sort of a dark, painted art style. And from what I can tell, he very much appreciated the compliment. But as I can tell by his reactions, he's pretty happy with it. Zeb Wells, never met this guy before. In my honest opinion, one of the two most underrated writers of Marvel in the last 20 years. The other, of course, being Jim Zeb. Two really good writers who, a lot of the time, Marvel doesn't give them a lot to do. Now, this is actually a miniseries. This is a sequel to the first Carnage miniseries, Family Feud. I have not reviewed that one yet, but I'll probably review it in the future. Now, this book can be kind of considered the first time the Avengers have actually dealt with Carnage for the first time. They've kind of dealt with him mostly a couple times prior to this. First being Max Carnage, so it was mostly Captain America himself dealing with Carnage. And the other time was in New Avengers Number 2, which they kind of reference in here, when the Century dragged Carnage to space and ripped him in half. Yeah. Which, by the way, Cleus casting, when he's not symbiote up, he has robotic legs. Yes, Cleus Cassidy's got robotic legs. Why? Because the Sentry ripped them off during the storyline breakout. It was revealed in the previous miniseries that Cleus Cassidy was, in fact, alive. Yeah, I'm not really sure why they retcon basically something at Bendis Tick or Marvel. Sometimes I like doing that. They like retcon stuff, and they're like, if they really want to use Carnage again, just bring it back. Yeah, with Carnage being back, I take over this town. You're thinking, take over town. Sounds a lot like Code of Carnage. Yes, very similar to that, except that was done in a miniseries during an actual comic book event. This is mostly Spider-Man bringing the Avengers. Actually, it's Cap basically bringing Spider-Man. Now, the Avengers featuring the storyline, who, by the way, were on the main team Avengers at this point. This is actually before AVX, mind you. Yeah, this came out, the second printing of this thing. Carnage USA, I think this came out in 2011, if I'm not mistaken. Let's see, Carnage USA. This came out in 2011. Well, December 2011. That's when the miniseries was in fact released. From December 2011 to April 2012. So just prior to AVX. Yes. And we also have a return of the Symbiotes. The other Symbiotes like Hybrid. There's a whole boatload of them. A lot of them have not been seen in years. Yes. Yeah, it's the mercenary team, which is comprised of Rot, Agony, Plague. Ooh, a lot of these people become, let's say, hosts of these things. Now, a lot of these characters were killed off in the current Deadpool vs. Carnage miniseries, which Zeb Wells did not write that one. That was Cullen Bunn who wrote that. Yep. Yeah, the Mercury team was mostly made of people who were, well, let's just say, like people who became hosts to symbiotes. Yeah, Rot, Agony, Plague, and Lasher. Lasher, also known as Hybrid, that was born into a dog, and that was killed off in Carnage Separate and Agony #1. And if you're curious, though, is there anybody currently hosting this thing right now? Yes, a guy by the name of Scott Warrington. Well, he was, until he got killed. This guy would kill off in 15. And we're like, okay, is there any, like, actual people who are hosts to this creature now? Well, I don't think so, no, because I think the symbiote is just not active anymore. It was most recently featured in King in Black Symbiotes. Yeah, that's what was mostly featured. It first showed up in Venom Along Came a Spider. Its last physical appearance was in King in Black Planet of the Symbiotes #1. That was the last time anybody saw the last symbiote. The Agony symbiote, who the current host basically. Now, this symbiote first showed up in Venom Lethal Protocol, the original miniseries. It actually Agony in this miniseries. Mm-hmm. Now, as for host per se, well, now in the case of host, now the original host was Gamma Shin. That was the original. That was basically the original host of Agony, who appeared in Extreme Carnage Alpha. They say it's the original host. Oh, that's the current host. Excuse me. Yes. They also had the Maker briefly host this thing. Deadpool, a woman named Tess. Yeah, she was basically this, just for saving anxiety and a couple issues of Venom. And that was it. Yeah, who was the original hostess of this creature? It's not Scott Washington. It's, let's see. Well, I could say it's Lazelle Genner, but that one died in Saving Anxiety #3. That's Venom Saving Anxiety. Yes, the symbiote itself is a creation of Dave Mitchell and Rob Lamb. Well, it seems like a lot of the time the hosts tend to be women for this one. Yes. That's what I could tell anyways. Mm-hmm. There's also named James Murphy, who was actually the host in this miniseries. Mm-hmm. Yes. Now, as for the other ones, Plague, he is not the current host of Plague. He died in Carnage USA. Not Carnage USA. He died in, Deadpool vs. Carnage. The original one also died in Saving Anxiety. Yeah, his name was Carl Match. He was the original host of the character. Mm-hmm. There's somebody named Billy. Yeah, I believe he's the current host of the Venom symbiote. The Plague symbiote. Yes, I believe he is. Well, yeah, I think he was. He appeared in, well, Saving Anxiety, one shot, and 2 issues of Venom. But as for the current host of Plague, I think it's Buck Cashman. Yes, Buck Cashman. He was the host of the Plague symbiote, but he's dead. He died in Extreme Carnage Lash #1. Okay, so the current host of this one is, well, a dog. Yep, it's a dog. That's the current host of this particular symbiote is. Rot itself, well, this, I believe, this was the host of Rot. Now, in the movie, it was Clayton something. That's who originally was Rot. And, by the way, they even brought back the symbiote for, I believe, for the current Venom book by... Let's see. So, it's had a few hosts over the years. Yeah, not many. You had Deadpool, Sadie's father, an unnamed host, Hogan, Lasher. If you're thinking, like, is there anybody host this symbiote anymore? Nope. This one basically does not have a host anymore. Currently, it does not. Yes, at one point, that was Plague. Raw in the movie was hosted by Carlton Drake. Yeah, for some reason they had this guy be the host of the character. Yeah, for some reason they had him be the final host of the movie. Don't know why. It's kind of weird. Yeah, Carlton Drake, the guy who runs the Life Foundation, which they've actually brought the thing back recently for the current run of Venom by Al Ewing and Ram V. This miniseries is really good. Yes, if you're curious about these hosts would pop up again in Death vs. Carnage, where they'll get killed off. Carnage himself is captured, though I think he later pops up again after this. Seems like it takes him a while if this miniseries wraps up for him to pop up again. Like, I don't think he's active again for quite some time, not until minimum Carnage. Yeah, Cassidy himself. Yeah, it seems as though after this particular event, this miniseries wrapped up, the next time we saw him was actually Minimum Carnage. Yep, that was the next time we saw him, was that crossover event. And that came out about a couple years after this did. I think it was like a year or two. Miniseries is good. Good book, a 9.5 out of 10. Just a damn good book. Alright, next up we have the finale for The Superior Foes of Spider-Man, written by the second to most recent writer for Amazing Spider-Man. I say second to most recent because basically he was the second most recent regular writer for the book. Zeb Wells to go with the book with the relaunch, because Zeb Wells was one of the rotating writers, and now we have full-time writer again. Now, in my opinion, like doing what Nick Spence did in this book compared to what he did in the Captain America books was a lot better for him to do. Use the ideas he's from this than that book too, because Boomerang was basically featured in that book. Yes. Now this book here is the start of this very, very short-lived ongoing series. It got canceled. It ended after 15 issues. I guess some people thought that this book should have canceled with issue 12, but nope, it basically continued a little while. Yeah, and this book does feature appearance by Luke Cage and Iron Fist, which, by the way, this was actually the first time they appeared since AVX. Well, since the end of New Avengers. Yes, seriously. Now, as for why in the world that they appeared in this book, well, they didn't have a book at the time, so I guess they figured, though, hey, one featured Luke Cage in a book that called Superior Foes of Spider-Man. Yes, I guess so. Yeah, this book also featured the Punisher briefly. Yes, the Punisher. Except Punisher does not technically pop up in this series. Nope, it was a chameleon posing as the Punisher. And the plot of this thing is that, they have stumbled upon they stumbled on two particular big things as a plot threads we have of this entire book. Finding the head of Superman and a painting of Doctor Doom without his mask on. No, seriously, that is the plot of this damn thing. And we also have a return of Abe Jenkins. Yes. Yes, and prior to this book, let's see, I think he had previously appeared. Let's see, his most previous appearance of the character. I think this book was when he first took the identity of Mach 8, I think it was. Let's see, I'm looking it up right now. Prior to this, his last appearance was back in Dark Avengers 183. And he's here for basically issues 2 through 6. Well, skip issue 5. But he does come back toward the end of the book. So pretty much he's a recurring character in the book for pretty much the whole entirety of the book. Yes. Mach 8. Yes. The Beetle. Yeah, I believe it's in this. Yep. definitely. Issue 2 was the first look at the identity of Mach 6. Before we switch on to Mach 10, 3 years later, in the Gems that run for Thunderbolts. This book is a lot of fun. Great book. Of course, Nick Spencer writes this book with Steve Lemmer in the artwork. I give this book a 10 out of 10 because it's just pure fun. Final thoughts on this very series. Yes, I can finally say final thoughts because now here you go right here. The entire ongoing series of the Superior Force of Spider-Man. This book, for some reason, was never available at Ollie, so I could never get my hands on it. I figured, though, I have a library, get it there. The book series is really good. It's a lot of fun, and it's awesome, though, the fact Nick Spencer brought the humor from this book over to his Spider-Man run, and not brought any political stuff that he did over in Secret Empire. Basically, kind of in the way his Spider-Man practically saved his career, because a lot of people were hating on him after what happened with Secret Empire, and Secret Empire described as pretty much the worst event of Marvel Comics in the last 20 years, which I do kind of agree with that. But this book basically is what he's known for. Comedy. Yes, not serious, stupid, over-the-top political stuff. This book was a lot better than that. Though this book did come out 4 years prior to Secret Empire. Yes, it did. Yeah, it was actually quite shocking, though, the fact that basically had the word superior. And this book basically, issue 13 of Superior Spider-Man, the first volume for the series, not the Christmas Gage volume, that served as a backdrop poet to the series. I think some people thought, though, the series would end with when Superior Spider-Man ended, but nope, it continued on for a little over a year longer. Now, as for why in the world, basically, okay, so apparently the reason why it was expanded more issues because he was popular. I'm like, come think of it, like, if a series is popular, why not make it continue? I kind of wish Marvel would basically adapt this policy. Like, if you can have a 12-issue run, fine. But if it's popular, expand upon it. Don't just abruptly cancel it just because you think the book is not selling to your standards. Yes, this book proves that Marvel can have a book about comedic villains and be really good. Oh, and the lineup for this book, it was the Sinister Six lineup they had from Superior Spider-Man. Which, this is called the Sinister Six. They actually only have 5 people because because Superior Spider-Man took Living Brain. Now, this group itself, after this book concluded, this version of the Sinister Six would pop up again in Nick Spencer's run for Amazing Spider-Man. Yeah, he would bring this group back because stuff related to Boomerang and the stuff for Sinister War. That's when they brought this group back, which is shocking to say the least. Though I gotta admit, the Sinister War storyline was excellent. Love it. I love the Sinister Six stuff. It was awesome. Oh yeah, definitely. It was definitely by far, like, the Sinister War was definitely something that Nick Spencer leaned into for quite a while, for pretty much the second half of his run. Yep. But not much to say about 2 trades. Both good. Okay, so that's a particular view. Next one is going to be Shaman King. And yes, I'm going to do a review of that, and plus do a follow-up episode, but you have final thoughts on the series itself. Okay? Next video. Bye.